welcome to the Animal Training Academy Making Ripples podcast show, the show where we share the stories of the ripple-making extraordinaires with behavior nerd superpowers who make up the Animal Training Academy membership. I'm your host and one of the happiness engineers at Animal Training Academy, Shelley Wood from Drop Your Jaws Dog Training in Cape Girardeau, Missouri in the United States. We're absolutely thrilled and grateful to have you here with us today. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single episode. This show is brought to you on behalf of the Animal Training Academy membership. So if you like the conversations in these episodes, then we want to invite you to continue them with like-minded people in the ATA membership, which you can find out more about at www.atamember.com. Within the membership, you can get access to twice monthly live web classes, the back catalog of previous web class replays, plus a huge library of videos and projects to help you problem solve your training challenges. And we're a sociable bunch with an exclusive private Facebook group and forums area. It's like a Netflix social media platform for animal behavior geeks. Today we are excited to welcome Jill Howlett to the show. Jill Howlett is a KPA CTP and the founder of Walk and Train ACT, a business that has built a small clientele that she sees regularly. The success of the business lies with the relationship established with both the humans and the dogs. Based in Canberra, Australia, Jill shares a busy home with her husband, 3 children, and 2 dogs. Jill holds a Bachelor of Education, primary, but discovered traditional teaching did not align with her parenting goals. This journey took an exciting turn when her family adopted Archie, a deaf Koolie cross. With Archie, Jill discovered clickers and positive reinforcement, which reconnected her to her lifelong passion for animals and their welfare. Jill is committed to fostering a supportive and fear-free training environment, collaborating with a dedicated community of like-minded dog trainers. Through her work and volunteer instructing role at her local positive reinforcement-based dog club, she strives to empower pet guardians to better understand and communicate with their dogs. Welcome, Jill.
Thanks, Shelley. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to talk with you and to share some of the ripples that we get to experience all the time in the Animal Training Academy community with our larger audience today. So could you start us off today by sharing a little bit about your story with us? Tell us how you started working with animals and how you're spending your days with them today.
Yeah, animals have always been a huge part of who I am, I think. I grew up in a tiny timber town in Victoria, Australia. So timber towns, different to just country. It was bush. We did have some farms and stuff as well, but big educators of mine when I was little was a pony that I got when I was 6, who was Josie. She was not a very pleasant pony. She was a very strong-willed pony. So she taught me a lot about things, about life. Another one would be a duck that I had when I was younger. Absolutely adored him, Ronald. I did get 2 ducks, but the female didn't survive, and he couldn't swim. He plucked all his tail feathers out because he knew he had to do something, I think, with his rear end, and he didn't know what. Didn't have any other ducks to teach him, but he used to come flapping halfway down the paddock when he'd hear my voice. He would come in for cuddles. He didn't like my brother, which was kind of cool because my brother had a way with animals usually, and he really didn't like that this duck didn't like him. So right from those days, we always had dogs. They weren't mine, but they were the family dogs. Different world to what we live in now because the gate was always open, but they didn't go anywhere. I didn't really do any training. And when I was reflecting for this podcast, I realized a lot of my early life, even though it was surrounded by animals, was never about training. It was always just being with the animals. We raised wombats. We had possums. It was a great place to grow up. It was in the bush. Once I left there, I got married. I got married young and we're in Darwin. So I did some wildlife care up in Darwin as well. So that was mainly brush-tail possums, and I had a very cheeky black-footed tree rat that he was the character. Also spent some time volunteering at the wildlife park up there, which was all Australian animals. I got my first dog. It was a Staffy. That was Gabby. Didn't know anything really except for what I'd grown up with, which was country style, and didn't socialise her enough, sadly. She was an absolute gorgeous girl. She still did everything you would ask her to do, but she didn't particularly love other dogs. And then we got a Rottweiler that needed a new home, and we got a trainer in. He was very dog distracted. We got him when he was about 12 months old. He'd been bred pretty much to show, and then he'd got an underslung jaw. So the person who didn't want him anymore because he wasn't any good for the show ring, which kind of disgusted me. But anyway, he was a beautiful dog, but he just really, he hadn't been around, apart from his mum, he hadn't been around other dogs at all. So we got a trainer in to help us with that, but that was very old school. He was like a ex-military or something or other, and it was all about, don't let them walk through the door first, don't let them eat first, do this, do that. And as we all say quite regularly, I wish I knew now what I knew then. I wish I knew then what I know now. I think I could have helped him a lot more. I ended up rehoming him. It broke my heart. I cried for about 2 weeks, but he'd had a run-in with our next door neighbour's dog, and they were good about it. But I kind of thought at any time they could flick around and declare him dangerous, whatever. And so I actually rehomed him before they could change their mind. It was also, I knew I was going to be in town. I was a military wife at the time, so we moved and I was always going to be in town. Following him, we got a Brittany, because I researched everything opposite to a Rottweiler and came up with a Brittany. So, and she was lovely, and we still had the Staffy, so the Brittany and the Staffy. We went to dog clubs, a dog club down in Melbourne, and we did use treats, but it was still check chain time, and Gabby didn't really need it. My husband mainly did the Staffy, the Jaffa, the Brittany. The Staffy was my baby, and then they grew old, to 15, 16. And I'd had children in the mix. And I went, right, we're not getting another dog until the children can be part of the plan, part of the training. I had 3 children, and that was kind of enough at the time. And I love animals, I always loved animals, like I said, but I just wanted the kids to be a part of it if we had a new dog. So it was when my eldest was heading into teenagerhood and really wanted a dog. And the younger one was old enough, he was 6, 7. And we started flicking on rescues. We'd had the others had been from breeders, and I wanted to go down the rescue route. So we have a couple of awesome organisations here in Canberra. ARF is one of them. And I was just flicking across these dogs, and I didn't even stay on Archie, because he was deaf, he was lame, he was sunburn prone because he's a double male. And I thought, there's no way, I'm not even going to show my husband that one, because there's no way he's going to go for him. And he actually showed me. I said, what about this one? I went, okay. So we went and met Archie and Jillian, who was his wonderful foster carer, and stayed there for 3 hours. And I now have a really good friend as well as the dog, because Jillian and I still keep contact. Then she had to come over and check out the house, of course. So she stayed here for about another 3 hours before she said that Archie could stay. She was ready to adopt him, but she knew her situation. She said she had been ready to adopt him until she met us and saw him with us. So that's how we got Archie. So Archie's a double merle, and therefore pretty much, I say deaf, I think he can hear a little bit in one ear occasionally. If you drop really loud noises of some certain wavelengths, I don't know, he can hear some dog barks he can hear and others he can't. But function-wise, he's pretty well deaf. So never had a deaf dog before. Decided I probably needed to go and get a bit of help, and I'd like to do training. And I looked around at the local dog clubs, and the Companion Dog Club, CDC, sounded great. It was all positive, this positive reinforcement I hadn't heard about. but it was all positive, which I liked the idea of. And so I took Archie along there. I had a fantastic trainer who is now also a good friend for my first instructor. And she started saying, even in that first term, have you thought about doing instructing? And I kind of went, it's all new and I've got a new dog. Not really. And then my second term, that instructor said, have you thought about doing instructing? And I went, not really. And that's when the club's instructing course came up and they put me forward to do it. So I went along and I did this instructing course, which is an in-home, in-house kind of course, but they've done a brilliant job setting this course up. So I got introduced to the quadrants and I got introduced to all of the bits and pieces that go along with positive reinforcement. And I thought, this is amazing. I think I was teaching again at that time, but not really, didn't fit with family. So I didn't really want to stay teaching. And I wanted to learn more. So I looked around. In Australia, there's only really a couple of options, really. And Delta is one of them. And TAFE is another. And I knew people at the dog club. I talked to them. And then I found out about Karen Pryor and went, well, it's clicker training, and kind of came from there. So why not go back to the origins? So, and we have Alexis in Australia as a KPA faculty. She was running a different course at our dog club, just a weekend. So I thought I'd go along and meet her and see what she was like before I actually signed up for KPA. And basically, so it was a year after me starting the instructing at the club, I did KPA, and that was amazing. It was a lot more than I ever expected it to be. It pretty much consumed 6 months. It's not something to take on lightly, but I mean, you do learn a lot. I think it was I'm really glad I did it. And I think it was a fantastic foundation. And in that time when I was doing the KPA course, we have a really fantastic fear-free group in Canberra. And one of I would say the founding or one of the key people in that is Jess McNamara Rice. I usually just call her Jess Mac. We have a couple of Jesses. And she and a group of her friends had actually put together a seminar weekend. And from that, they got a list of people and they made a Facebook group, and they kind of went, we really want to foster supporting each other. We really want to do that kind of work, which I think is amazing. And she's been really encouraging the whole way through. So on that Facebook page, as I was finishing KPA, one of the ladies put up that she was going overseas. Was there somebody who could look after her special girl who was a greyhound, Charlie? So I contacted her. I thought people would jump at it. Nobody jumped on it. And I went, it was a paid gig, but I thought nobody responded. And I said, well, I don't have a business. I'm just finishing KPA. Don't have a business, don't have insurance, but I'll do it for you if you like. We can work something out. And so she met me, and she's good friends with Jess. And I think it was the next day, I got an email from Jess saying, oh, I hear you're taking clients. And I went, well, I don't actually have a business. And a week later, I had a business and I'd sorted that out. And Jess sent me my first client, who I actually still have. And it all happened like bang, bang, bang. And it all happened in 2023. So not that long ago, but that was pretty much, that's where I am now. And now I spend my days, I try to only keep it to 3 days. It's 3 and a little bit. I do one on Friday. Jess keeps on saying to me, do you want any more? I can send more your way, which is lovely. Really privileged spot to be in. I haven't had to advertise or anything like that. It's all been through other trainers and word of mouth. But I do walk and train. So I walk, really, it's talk, really, I think. I think my niche is people who love their dogs, generally like to talk dogs. One of my main client is actually a lovely lady who has had some very unfortunate health circumstances, has an interesting dog. She'll come up because she is my challenge as well, the dog, not the lady. And I see her for 3.5 hours, basically 3 days a week. That's through a disability scheme in Australia. But I take her out, I take the lady and the dog out walking. We do other things as well. But yeah, I don't have lots of clients. I have very few, but it's really lovely because then I don't have to worry about chasing people up for money and things like that either, because they're all really reliable. And it's, yeah, very, very lucky, basically, where I've ended up.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. And it does sound like you're lucky that you've gotten some really fantastic clients who you have special relationships with. And I look forward to talking a little bit more about some of that with you today. Thank you for sharing all of that. I really relate to your early story. I grew up way out in the country as well with a similar assortment of critters, right down to the strong-willed pony. Mine was a pony Tennessee walking horse mix. But anyway, I definitely related to your story, and I loved how you shared, it really wasn't about training for you at that time, but more just being with the animals and observing them and interacting and the kind of freedom that they had too. It's wonderful. And I wanted to take just a minute to say thank you very much for your bravery in sharing about the dog that you had, the Rottweiler that you had, and who you rehomed. And I can tell from listening to you talk about that, that was very a difficult decision for you to make. And I thank you for being vulnerable and sharing about that on the show. And I also thank you for making what sure you knew was the best decision for that dog based on your life circumstances at the time. And it struck me after you shared about that, and then you shared a little bit later about how Archie came to you, and he was in, if I have this right, he was in a foster situation, and she brought him to you, and that person was about ready to adopt him herself, and then said that you all were the best fit for him. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting that here you had this one dog in your life who it just wasn't maybe the right dog at the right time in your family, and then when Archie came into your life, he just fit perfectly. And even with his uniqueness, he fit perfectly. So
the follow-up on that Rottweiler, I had contact with the people who, I didn't leave him there. I stayed there for about 3 or 4 hours before I said I'd leave him as well. Had lovely scone and soup and all sorts of things. But I had follow-up with them several times afterwards, and each time I got the impression from them that they thought we were insane. Why did we give up this dog? Because you're such a lovely dog. And I'm going, yeah, I know he's a lovely dog. But I was really appreciative that they saw the beauty in him, and he went to the perfect place. He went to where there weren't a lot of other dogs around, and he was kind of a guard dog. I don't know if he would have guarded much, but he looked impressive. And so hearing back from them was lovely, because they really, each time it was like, how could you have given him up? And it's like, yeah, well, not easily. So yeah, I think there's a place. It's a big belief of mine. I think people should take a lot of time to actually think about what suits them and what suits their life as well, with the dogs that they choose and the animals they choose.
That's great. And I think that's something that maybe we don't talk about enough, but it is something that's really important to put a lot of thought into that. And I think that particular scenario with the Rottweiler is really interesting too. And it's wonderful that the people were thrilled with him, and we're seeing completely different behavior from him, and a really wonderful example of how behavior doesn't just spill up out of individuals. It's interacting with the environment all the time. And so in a different environment outside of busy city or town, or, in maybe in a more country environment, or maybe an environment that just has a little more space or whatever. I don't know what the differences were necessarily, but in a different environment, you're going to get different behavior. So wonderful. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And then just to also kind of piggyback off of what you were just saying about the importance of making sure that we're spending time thinking about who we're bringing into our lives and how we're bringing them into our lives and when. I was really struck by your decision to wait to bring another dog into your life until your children were old enough that they could take part in the training as well. And they did take part then in the training when you brought.
Well, it was a bit hard because when we got Archie, he was meant to be the family dog, but he chose me. So he chose me pretty much in that first meeting. And he's a working boy. So he has, and from what I've read since, quite common with deaf dogs. They kind of tend to have one person that has as their touchstone, as their hearing person. And he didn't give the others that much attention. If I got up, he got up. If he would be asleep, his head would flick up and he'd survey the room, lock eyes on me, and then put his head back down and go back to sleep. That was really evident when we first got him. He still does it to a lesser degree. He'll be asleep and then he'll do a quick head flick up and look around. He just barked. I don't know if you heard it on the microphone, but he just barked then. That would be I can't find you. Where are you? Bark. He will track me and he'll be as close to me as possible. So 12 months later, we started looking at dogs again so the family could have a dog. And we found another foster, different organisation, and that was Strudel. So Strudel's a little terrier mix. Looks like a black Kelpie, but is very much, her mum was a terrier and her mannerisms are definitely terrier. My husband, I think, wanted a Kelpie to go and do agility and stuff with, but we got a terrier instead because we got her. So she's the perfect family dog, which is what we were hoping, but that's what we wanted, was a family dog. She has a lot of, like a lot of terriers, she has a lot of cat-like traits. She will come up and curl up in your lap. She's a very quiet girl. And funny enough, Archie has all on the surface, the interesting characteristics, such as the double merles and what that brought along. His lameness was actually a femoral head removal that was done by the foster organisation. So he doesn't actually have a femoral head in his back leg. And Jillian actually saw him through that and nursed him and did all that right through surgery and recovery. But Strudel it turns out, I would say, she has more issues than he does. He's a very resilient dog. He's a very optimistic dog. He will give 110%, and anything you ask him, he's like, right, we're going to do it. And perfect KPA dog, because it didn't matter how much training I wanted to do. He was there and ready to go. Get the video out. He started getting excited. Get the stand, like the tripod out to do video. He goes, right, we're on. Her, not so much. She was her litter mates and her were dumped as puppies. And I take it her mum probably was in quite a stressful environment as well. I follow a couple of the siblings on Instagram, and one looks like a schnauzer, one looks like mum, and one looks like Strudel, which is a Kelpie. So I think there was multiple dads. So it's really interesting watching the two. She's very much a pessimistic girl. So she came along, and so she's taught me a lot as well. But for the family, it was actually, she came along for the family. So the kids took more part in training her. Once I got onto KPA and got onto clicker training, I did a lot of the tabletop games and stuff with my daughter, and she's very good with the clicker. She now actually works in the shop at Dog Club. And the other kids, I'd say the eldest, which is funny because he's the teenager I was actually hoping to get a dog sort of to be a part of his life. He's probably the least training minded. The other two in our house, if they basically go, oh, we're going to do some training, they'll pick up a clicker first. The clicker is always by the bowl of food. They all get a kick out of doing different behaviours, weird little quirky behaviours and things like stick 'em up, which is like getting her to come up and put her paws up, and they'll do the fists as if they're going to do a boxing match, things like that. They don't particularly walk the dogs. They don't particularly do any of that, but I think they're also a little bit paranoid that baby will do something wrong, or mum will say we're doing something wrong, or my daughter is very sensitive, so she's very conscious of running into other dogs when she's out walking. and then not being able to look after. She's very protective of the little anxious girl. She's a little bit anxious herself. So she identifies a lot with the Strudel. So she's quite, and the Archie is a bit of a buff. He has no bad intentions. He's just buffy, and she's very petite. So as in Strudel is very petite. So my daughter is very much first standing in between and making sure, like Strudel knows to come to middle whenever she's getting a bit overwhelmed by Archie. So my daughter will always make sure that, yes, there's definitely a safe space for Strudel wherever she is. And her bedroom is also the safe space because Archie's not allowed in, but Strudel is. And that's an Archie-free zone so that she can go and decompress. So Strudel can go and decompress away from Archie. So that's my daughter's part, yes.
Well, it sounds like you have found dogs who are the perfect fit for your family, and that maybe you need to get a third for your husband to do agility with. No third.
No, because it would end up being me, and I don't have time. I minded a client's dog for a little while, and that really cemented the fact of I don't need a third dog right now. My two don't get enough of my time as it is. So, and then there's 3 children as well that will say they don't get enough of my time either. So, no, not enough.
There you are making the smart decisions about the life that you have and the household that you're in right now before bringing in another family member. And look at me trying to be a bad influence. And
when there's no kids, I'd happily foster. I really love the foster situation. I think it's a brilliant. I was really apprehensive of getting a rescue purely because I had a young child. So I really wanted to talk to a foster carer who had the dog in their home so I could actually know what I was getting, because I didn't want to put my child at risk, for sure, obviously. But I mean, a 6-year-old is still a 7-year-old. He was good and he would listen, but having that foster situation really means you can talk to somebody who knows the dog and knows the dog in a home, which is really important, I think. So I would like to full circle. I'd like when I don't have kids, and maybe when I've got I don't know when I won't be doing as much, but when I'm not doing as much, I'd like to foster. It's something that would be definitely something in the future.
I completely agree. I think fostering is such a great model for all the reasons that you mentioned. And also, if somebody is thinking about getting another dog, it's a great way to make sure that they are a good fit before you make that full commitment as well. So I think it's a great model for a lot of reasons. So I'm glad you brought that up. Could you share just a little bit with us? We're going to shift gears here in just a minute and start talking about some more training specific related things. But before we do that, I think your business model is really interesting, that you just have, such a small, if I understand correctly, kind of a small group of people who you've worked with over a pretty long period of time. You've developed some really cool relationships with them and vice versa. And I'd be curious to hear just a little bit more about what that looks like and if that was developed intentionally, or you mentioned luck earlier, if it was all luck. Could you share just a little bit about that?
It's been circumstances. I couldn't say it was exactly a plan. Although back when I was doing, I think it was before I actually had KP. Yeah, when I was doing KPA, I was going through a lot with stuff with my parents down in Victoria. So it's about 5 hours away. I know everywhere it's not quite as big as Australia. So about 5 hours away, my parents was in 2023 as well. We put them into a independent living nursing home kind of thing. And my sister and I were doing lots of trips down and spending time down there trying to help them. We're heading into dementia and all that sort of stuff. And my sister had at the time an older healer and a Kelpie. And she said, the Kelpie, it's horrible to walk, doesn't walk very well. And I was doing Karen Pryor, of course. So I'm like going, when we were heading down there one time, we were down there together for 5 days or something. And I said, can I just play around? Can I just play with the clicker and your dog? And so I started taking it for walks. It was wearing a halter at the time. And I kind of went, I don't know if it really needs it. So I introduced the dog to the clicker and spent those 5 days. I would go for walks. We had to go completely away from her. Otherwise the dog, of course, would be focused on her. But I'd go for walks doing clicker stuff. And basically by the end of those couple of days, of course, I had her walking quite nicely, and we ditched the Holtie. And then we came back to Queanbeyan, or Canberra, where I live. And my sister was here for a couple of days before she went back home. So I spent those times, I would be walking my two dogs and the healer, and she was walking the Kelpie, and I was trying to coach her from a distance. While I was walking the three, I would coach her with what I had been doing with this Kelpie. And that's it's really from there that I got the idea of walk and train. I read different, like going through the end of the Karen Pryor part, the whole setting up your business sort of stuff. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I kind of went, well, that makes sense to me, that the whole, I'll work with the dog and give it the skills and lay the foundations. And then I can talk to the human, and I will have already given the dog the kickstart. I'm not just trying to tell the human how to do it. I'm actually getting the foundations set in the dog, and then actually showing the human how they can take over. And that's pretty much what I decided I wanted to try and do with the business. So I didn't set up, I get told off these days and going, no, you're a dog trainer. And I go, well, I'm a dog walker. And I get told off by a few friends and my husband basically going, no, you're a trainer. And I'm going, yeah, okay. But I train, I walk the dogs with the purpose of training that will then transfer to the people. And so one of my clients is a young mum, got a COVID dog, and then had a child. So didn't have time to do the socialization that probably should have happened either. And she beats herself up about it. And I said, but you've got what you wanted. You've got a perfect family pet. He's a Bordoodle, so border cross poodle, border collie cross poodle, and he's a standard. So he's quite big, but he's fantastic with the child, and he's fantastic in the home. But going out for a walk, he pulled like a steam train, and she couldn't safely walk him and have the child with her, whether it was in a carrier or the pram. It just wasn't safe to have the dog the way he was and the pram. So that's where I came in, and I would take the dog out by myself and get the dog. It took quite a long time, but we finally got to walking now. He walks on a loose leash. He will walk back with me, but I also he likes to go out and adventure. So he still has that, but he has the check-ins, and he's lovely. And the beautiful thing is that she can now take her child in a carrier safely, and also the pram. And she's started running with the pram as well, and she can do all that with the dog now. So that's where I get the warm fuzzy, because I kind of go, well, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to facilitate dogs living with their people in whatever shape, style, or whatever that the people actually want their dog to live with them. So another lady, I sit down at the end of, a lot of my clients actually will see twice a week just to get that training in. Otherwise, that time on the ground isn't enough, I found. I did start doing it once a week particularly with that dog, but I found once a week wasn't enough to have the time actually training. So I started doing twice a week, and that worked. Being there twice a week just got that foundation in. So I now only see that one once a week, and we're now working at going to the shops and sitting at the cafe, like as in sitting at the outside cafe at the chair, and just so the dog, it's a fairly high-strung dog, being a border collie and a poodle, but just sitting there working at being calm and actually just just socializing with shops. That's what we're doing now. And then we go for a sniff walk and decompress. So it's always trying to be about the dog. A lady I see in the city, she's got mobility issues, so I kind of am the dog walker. But when I started walking with this dog, it walked beautifully. It would have made anybody look good. It walked beautifully beside it, but it would not sniff. This thing would just there the whole time staring up at you. And I don't know what sort of training it had before me, but basically it would not relax and just go and sniff. And now I love it because I still go and I see her. I've taught the dog to pick up her keys and stuff like that when she drops them. And my every session on a Friday ends up with sitting down and having a cup of tea with her. That's part of what the session is. But part of me goes, that's not a dog trainer. But now when she has friends over and they're sitting down having a cup of tea, the dog sits on the bed and just watches them, because that's what we've done every Friday, is actually have the dog on the bed getting paid for being on its mat, basically just sitting calmly, because that's what she wants. She doesn't need a obedience dog. she needs a dog that does certain things, and that's one of the things that she needs her dog to do. So that's what we do. So I don't know, if that's a business model, I don't know. But basically, me spending time one-on-one with the dog, but also spending time with the person to transfer that knowledge is pretty much, I guess, what you'd say my business model is, if I have a business model. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing all of that. And I think you do have a business model, the walk and train. I think that's a great idea that you had. And you say that you mentioned the word luck earlier, and circumstance again is how it developed. And those things might have been a part of it, but clearly you were a part of directing it and making it evolve in this way too, right out of the gate there with that model. So I love it. It's a great model. And I love that it's allowing you to develop these relationships that you're developing with people and their dogs, and help them build better relationships together too, and relationships that work for them in the lives that they have, in the environments where they live, and in the lives that they have together. So that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. And I'm going to take a little bit of a turn now and move into some more training related questions and ask you if you could share with us about a training related challenge that you've experienced and how you worked through it and some of the lessons you learned along the way.
That's why I did talk too much about the lady I spend all my time with, pretty much the foundation of my business. I would say her dog is the training challenge, but it's a challenge that we actually do together. So when I'm with this lady, we spend nearly all our time together with the dog. The dog has taught me, her name is Ren. She's a border collie. She has taught me so much. I've learned so much in that, and I have grown so much in that with this one dog and this lady as well. As I'll say her name, Amanda. So Amanda and Ren, I see them, as I said, about 3.5 hours, 3 times a week. Ren has primary ciliary dyskinesia, which is a condition from when they're being developed, the ciliary hairs in them don't form properly. So your ciliary hairs are right throughout your whole body. That's how you hear. That's got to do with how you breathe in your lungs. Your ciliary hairs are everywhere. And primary ciliary dyskinesia means those hairs weren't formed properly. So this underlying condition, we don't know all the details of. We don't know how it actually affects her completely. In Australia, there's no other recorded cases in border collies. Apparently there are overseas. And so she was tracking along fine. She went to puppy classes. My Amanda is amazing with the amount of management and everything she puts in place. She went to puppy classes. She took her for drives and sat when she was too young. She took her out in the pram, like she had a doggy pram from a previous dog. So she took her out in the pram so that the dog could, before her vaccinations and stuff, so she could actually see the world. So she did everything she possibly could to try and socialize this dog. This was her project dog, basically. She's retired. It was a gift almost from her mum. Her mum had cancer and was dying, and basically the money to buy this dog was a gift. And so she did all this stuff. And then about when I came on board, she was seeing Jess McNamara. So when I came on board, she had been going to Jess's classes, dog is very smart, and the dog had just had a reaction to a car, which was very out of character at this stage. So very young, about 9 months, 10 months. And she was in the car park. She'd been in this car park many, many times, and this dog just erupted at this car. And she was lucky she was holding the leash. Basically, she thought the car could have easily gone underneath it. So then in looking at watching that, she's very observant of her dog. We suspect it was the coinciding with the dog's first heat cycle, and all the wheels just came off. The dog then became reactive to cars, bikes, men. She was out walking. She'd been walking it quite frequently at this stage. She was out walking at our arboretum with a friend, turned around to head back to the car, and the dog starts hopping on its back legs basically to get back to the car, pulling back to the car, like obsessive. So Jess actually gave this to me as an easy job. It was just to walk the dog while Amanda was able to go visit her dad, who had dementia and was in a home. And that was 2 years ago. And since then, with Amanda, we've been to the vet behaviourist, we've been to the vet physio, we've been to Jess Mack as well as the actual for a behaviour consultation. We've been to the Jess Strain, who's a local trainer who specialises in working dogs and working on the sheep and actually working in paddocks. And I've been to the vet with her. Amanda can't drive. She has a condition that affects her hands and her feet, so she can't drive. I drive her. So this dog is reactive to rain as well. That was one talking on the webinar yesterday. I actually mentioned this dog asking about management for rain because I was wondering if there was anything I'd missed. And I'm yet to put the rain reactivity up on ATA. That's something I'm going to do to see if I can get the Brains Trust actually working on that one because it's bizarre. So this dog, I put it down to this dog is neurodivergent. It just is. One day it'll be one dog and the next day it'll be a different dog. Learns anything brilliantly. It's a border collie. It's got the border collie brain, but it doesn't have the stamina because of the primary ciliary dyskinesia. It can't breathe properly, as in its lungs don't work properly, so it gets exhausted very quickly. So it's got the conflict of a very smart brain, but the body doesn't keep up. So we now, in saying how we overcame it, it's always a question in our minds whether our training is working, Amanda's and mine. It's whether our training is working or whether there's something inside the dog that the dog is actually declining, because it's actually only meant to have a 3-year life expectancy and it's now 2.5. So we kind of go, is it just maturing or is our training working? So we have got a lot better at our walks are a lot more improved. We can now head back to the car without being on hind legs and we can walk calmly back to the car. The other day was a win. I haven't actually previously, even though I spend that much time with this dog and I have a good relationship with this dog, I hadn't actually been able to walk it without Amanda, as in it's very attached to Amanda. She can go out and it's not exactly, it's not separation anxiety. Like we thought that at one stage, we thought there might have been that at one stage. Doesn't seem to be that extreme, but it's only been in the last month and a half, I've actually, when Amanda's at an appointment, I can actually take the dog out and walk away from her house and go around the block and come back. Previously, this dog would not, there's no way it would get about 3 houses down and just stop. And there's no way you would convince it to go any further. It's like, no, that's my house back there and that's my person and they're not there. But yeah. So I started doing small walks as everybody in, I think that listens to ATA would know pretty much all the ways that I did things. It was all just tiny little steps, just splitting it down. We would only just go a little way and I'd go a little way regularly. And then I would go a little way to this particular part where we could just sit and watch. Cars are at a distance, so she would get paid for watching the cars calmly and she wasn't reacting, wasn't barking at them. And we'd watch occasionally a bike we could be back from the footpath, so a bike would go past and she could watch them. So we've got to that stage where we can watch things. We don't react every time. I say that I could turn up tomorrow and it'll be a different day. And one of the big things I've learned from that, from Ren as well, is that listening to people, because Amanda is an older lady and it's quite evident to me when I go places with her that sometimes the older ladies in particular, I think, just don't get listened to the same. I've sat in an appointment with her as the person who drove her there and the handler of the dog. I walk the dog and I train the dog, but she's the owner. And I've sat in an appointment where the person has spoken directly to me the whole appointment, which hurts. That hurts Amanda. And I go, this lady knows her dog. And it sounds like she's over-exaggerating things and stuff like that. But she says one of the biggest kind of gifts that I've given her, I think, is that I've been there with her through it all and I'll back her up. And I'll actually say to them, no, this dog is something else. This dog is different. Whereas I think other people make the assumptions that she's over-exaggerating things. And not paying attention to things, whereas she's great, as in she does an amazing job. So with this dog, I've learnt so much. Data collection is probably the biggest one. Before that, I was not really, not very. I still wouldn't say I'm very good at it, but I'm a lot better at. I'll taking videos, taking photos, recording things, actually trying to take notes down after an appointment to actually jot down what's happened that day. If something's changing, behavior changes obviously being one of those big flags of something's happening. And with Ren, we're constantly, there's things that are constantly changing and things that we go, I wonder if that's a good sign or a bad sign, and that question of we're getting closer to the end of that, what the vets, even though they don't seem to give us that many ideas, what they say is a life expectancy, but is it? We don't really know. Is this a decline, or is it just, her behavior's got better? It's hard. Yeah. So with her, I've learnt timing. She will learn anything. So keeping sharp on the Karen Pryor stuff, observations, data collection, problem solving. She's introduced me to all those experts I mentioned, and that real building the bond and just reading, like really read. She's a very expressive dog, very expressive, to the point where I brush her teeth most sessions. The day that Amanda wasn't there and she was at an appointment, I went to brush her teeth and she's just backed off. And the look she gave me, I'm like going, Amanda has said before that she worries about her being a bite risk to other people who come to the home if something was to happen to Amanda. And Amanda said before that there's been times where Amanda has gone, I'm not going to push you, honey, because you look like you're going to bite. She has never bitten anybody. But when I went to brush her teeth that day, I've kind of gone, that look you're giving me, okay, you can have your space, because Amanda wasn't there. That was the picture, the way the picture had changed. It's like, okay, now's not the time, obviously. So we'll just leave that one, put it aside. So she's a very interesting dog that I constantly learn from. And it definitely has been the biggest training challenge. It's just 2 years long and still going.
Sounds like a complex case for sure. They're very lucky, both Amanda and Ren, to have you advocating for them. And I love the takeaway that you mentioned as far as learning to listen to the owner. You know, the owners, these people, these guardians are the ones who are with these animals day in and day out. And a lot of times it can be easy to make our own assumptions and not always listen to what they are sharing. So that's a really good reminder to really tune in and listen. And also a good reminder of that interplay between medical and behavior sometimes too. It sounds like a lot of this dog's issues might be stemming from her medical issues as well. So always a good reminder there as well. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. And I look forward to continuing to hear from you about how Ren does and the lessons she continues to teach you. But now I'm wondering if you would share with us about, and I'm going to go ahead and say, another training situation that you are proud of and or found reinforcing, because I'm going to take a guess based on your behavior of continuing to work with that team that working with Amanda and Ren is very reinforcing to you. But please share with us about another training situation that you're proud of.
So I would put that down to Henry. Henry's the Bordoodle that I spoke about with the young family. He makes me smile pretty much every time. I only see him once a week now, but he's very apprehensive about lots of things, very pessimistic dog, pretty much, you put it down to that. And when I met him, he would not go anywhere near the car and he would not go anywhere near a crate. But we wanted to take him places to socialize him away from just the house area, further than I could walk in 30, 40 minutes or an hour. And so I introduced the crate to him in the backyard, as you would do. I introduced him to the car separate to the crate, and then I put the crate in the car. And it was a very slow process, very, very slow. I'm very lucky that the owners had faith and let me just keep persisting. Basically, she's a teacher, so a primary school teacher. So a lot of what I said I could relate considering I used to be a primary school teacher as well, I can always relate it to children and relate it to teaching children as well. So whether it's the dog or whether it's children, the same. And now when I go each week, I make sure I prepare the car before I get him out of the yard. And I open the door and I open the crate, and he just trots directly up to the car and he hops straight into the crate. Still doesn't, I wouldn't say he loves it, but he hops straight in, basically gets in the crate and sits down. I open the window for him he relaxes. He will actually lie down in the crate in the car. And when we get to the other end, when we're going for our walks, he will wait. He doesn't bolt out of the crate or anything. That was part of the training, was that he would wait for the release cue. So he does reliably every single time. And so he goes from basically sitting in the crate to looking a little bit uncomfortable. He still, like I said, he still doesn't love it, but he chooses to go in. So it's that he's still torn inside. You can see there's a bit of tear in there. But then he will happily hop out, and we go, like I said, we go to the shops to do that socialization. And then I always make sure I finish the session. He gets back in the car and back in the crate, and we go to a fun place, and he gets to just sniff on a long lead. And there might be kangaroos, and there might be other dogs around and things like that. So he gets to sniff lots of stuff. And then we go back to the car, and once again, he'll happily trot straight up to the car, even though it's a fantastic environment, and hop straight into his crate and basically go, yep, okay, we can go now. And that just makes me smile, because I go, it is so far from where he started. And his confidence, all those little things as well, you can see it just building up his confidence just that little bit. He's still not a confident dog, but it's improved. Yeah, he's a lot more comfortable in himself, I think, through all those little successes. Yesterday, I saw him, and it's probably he doesn't like to be touched. Being a Bordoodle, he gets groomed, and I think that's a big part of it. I learned from him. I usually teach touch, like target the hand, touch, as one of my first behaviors all the time. And I just couldn't get him to do it. He just wasn't interested in the hand until I thought, and got a touch stick. So he didn't have to touch my hand. He could actually target a stick. And that was fine. So yesterday he doesn't usually come up for pats. And when I got there yesterday, he bounded up to me and basically banged into me. And he initiated the contact. And that's cool too, because you kind of go, that's got to do with that relationship. And it's taken a long time. It's taken a long, long time to build, but yeah, it's there.
Yeah, that is really cool. And it's making me smile really big too. You mentioned it made you smile, him hopping into the car, and that made me smile, as well as you talking about him coming up to you, bounding into you. You said that's wonderful. And the car skill, in addition to building his confidence, I mean, what an important skill that is for a dog to be able to have the fullest life that they can, especially dogs who live in town and have to travel to more open spaces for exercise and enrichment. So it's wonderful that you were able to help them build that skill so successfully. I would be very proud of it as well if I were you.
Thank you.
We're going to move toward wrapping up here in just a minute, but before we do, I want to give you the opportunity. We've covered a lot of ground here and talked about a lot of different things, but is there anything that you wanted to share today, or any parting words of wisdom that you have before we officially start wrapping up?
As I said to you before the podcast started, I still feel very much a baby trainer and still very young in this training business. It still blows me away that I actually have a training business. So for anybody out there listening who aren't quite sure if they can, or if it's possible, or they don't know where they're quite heading, once you get some skills behind you, and I think KPA is a great avenue for that. And I think it also opens up the whole forum thing afterwards. So there's amazing contacts you can make through KPA and ATA for that matter, because I think I love ATA. It's one of the very few things I subscribe to. I think it's a fantastic community. I think community is what it's all about. And that's where I'm very appreciative to Jess for fostering the community we have here locally. But it's out there, as in you can actually you can actually make it happen. I don't know if I really believed I could. I didn't really know what I would do. And I still don't feel like, I mean, I'm still learning constantly. So you don't need to know it all before you start. I think that's a big one for me. I like to know things before I start doing something. I didn't, and I have learnt and kept on learning. But yeah, it's definitely worth giving it a go. And I mean, I'm constantly trying to fit in more education, which doesn't seem to happen all that often. I have to say, I'm super excited that both Ken Ramirez and Susan Friedman are coming to Australia this year. So I am so excited that I get to spend a week at Taronga Zoo with them in November. That's huge. It's huge for me as well, because when I looked at the dates, the start of that seminar is actually my son's birthday, which usually I would not do. But I'm like I apologized to him that night. I said, sorry, buddy, I'm not going to be there for your birthday this week because I'm going to the ceremony regardless. And it's amazing. I booked into the Ken Ramirez 3-day one because I found out about that first. So I booked into that and I was super excited about that. And then this other one came up that's actually the week prior to that weekend. And I've gone, oh my God, I thought just going and seeing Ken and hearing from Ken for 3 days would be amazing. And now I get to spend a whole day with Susan and then a whole week at Taronga with them and others. And then I get to spend time with Ken. So keep on learning, I guess, is the other one. There's so much to learn, and so many people. I mean, once upon a time in Australia, you would have been very limited. It would have been pretty much just books. But with the internet these days and with organisations like ATA, it's there. You can just learn and touch and talk to so many people. Like with ATA, the fact that you can actually go on a webinar and ask Chirag Patel a question and maybe get it answered, like it's just amazing. So I don't know if any of that's really a message to anybody, but there's so much out there. There's nothing, no matter where you are. Yeah, you can give it a go, basically.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I cannot imagine a better way to end the episode. Those are wonderful thoughts to leave people with. So thank you so much for sharing that and for everything that you shared today, Jill. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to chat with us all today. Where can people find out more about you? Where can people get in touch if people local to you are wanting to work with you, assuming you're able to take more clients? Do you have any information of that sort to share with folks?
The main place is actually on the Karen Pryor Find a Trainer. It's just, if you put in Canberra, if you search in Find a Trainer at Karen Pryor, if you put in Canberra, I'm the only one that comes up. There are other trainers around Canberra, but nobody else is on there. I've in the show notes, I've actually put Jess McNamara's webpage as well. If you're in the Canberra area, I would definitely recommend, if you have a dog, get in touch and see what Jess is doing. She's just got a premises here in Queanbeyan, and she does classes. She sends people my way. If you want, yeah, she's a great place to start. And the Companion Dog Club, CDC, in Canberra I've been a volunteer instructor there now since 2021. So it's just a volunteer role, but CDC is definitely, if I was in the Canberra area, CDC is where I'd try and point people. It's one of the few. We do have other dog clubs and they're good, but CDC is the positive reinforcement, fear-free kind of style all the way. And they have everything. There's an avenue to do every sort of dog sport and stuff, whatever, so all through CDC. And I do have a Instagram page. Well, my dogs do. Strudel and Archie. So it's actually Strudel and Archie is the Instagram. I don't put a lot of stuff up there, but usually if I do, it's got some. I haven't really put much up there because I haven't figured out exactly what I want to do with it. But if I do put stuff up there, it's me enjoying my dogs, but also trying to put a message out there at the same time, such as enjoying your dogs. not just, I don't post frequently. I don't post like lots and lots of stuff. But if there's something that I see that I actually feel like I would like to share with people, as in I went for a walk the other day up in the hills, up in bush tracks and I haven't done it for a long time because I haven't had the time. And I went, this is so good this is what I used to do all the time, and I haven't done it for so long. So I took a photo and basically went, yeah, remember how to enjoy your dogs. And sometimes going back to what you used to do, like look back what you used to do 2 or 3 years ago and enjoy your dogs. How did you enjoy your dogs then? Maybe you've got into different patterns and you've lost your way a little bit. So think about things that you used to do as well and enjoy. So Strudel and Archie on Instagram is another way to find me.
I'm going to be following Strudel and Archie as soon as we wrap up here. From myself, on behalf of everyone listening, on behalf of ATA, thank you so much, Jill, for taking time out of your busy day to chat with me and share your ripples with our audience.
Thank you so much for inviting in. Yeah, ATA is amazing. Thank you.
We do, of course, appreciate all of you tuning in as well. And if you have enjoyed this episode and are interested in carrying on the conversation about working with the animals in our lives in the most positive, most fun, and most choice-rich ways, then as mentioned at the start of this episode, the Animal Training Academy community is waiting for you. Head on over to www.atamember.com and click on the membership button in the main menu to learn more about what members are describing as the Netflix social media platform for behavior geeks. That's it for this episode, though. Thank you so much for listening. You'll hear from us again soon.